So, good morning. This is Dr. Michelle, and welcome to Spotlight on Success. I did not say that in my previous video on lies, lies, lies. It's a beautiful day here in Atlanta, and I just want to address something. People ask me a lot of times, how did I become the person that I am? What is it that bothers me so deeply about racial disparity, the systematic racism, all of those type of things. And no, I do not hate white people. People that know me know that. And so this is about black hate. And I have to be honest, I'm going to answer one question and then I'm gonna jump into that. Well, the reason why I'm such an advocate when it comes to equality, justice, racial divides, and racism, and prison reforms and things like that, because all of it has basically touched me in some form or fashion in my life. So what has happened is that I grew up in the country. I grew up in a place where I was shielded because I didn't know that racism was a thing. Believe it or not, I had never experienced discrimination. And so I went to school with all types of racial ethnicities, different races, different backgrounds, different cultures, things like that. And one of my best friends was a white girl. I can remember when I was little, though, I used to have a fit to go stay with her, and I could hear my mom and dad sometimes arguing about, like, no, she can't go, and or no, you can't go. And then when I got up of little age, I remember them letting me go stay with her. Well, come to find out, it was because of the racial tensions that I was not aware of. You got to understand, I'm a 70s baby, so I should have at that time been aware of it, but I wasn't. I was aware of Martin Luther King, and I was aware of him being killed back in 64, and I was aware of 65, things like that. I was aware of those things, but I wasn't aware, if that makes sense. I knew of it, but it had not been taught in school. Things like celebrating Black History Month, I don't remember much of that, but celebrating things like Harriet Tubman when she, did what she did, and the railroad, and just all sorts of things like that. The things that was brought to the forefront while we were in high school. So what happened was, I just knew of the advances that black people had made towards our freedom for slavery. I was not aware of the racial demise then, as far as not getting along and being hoes in different areas for white than black. I just was not aware of all of that. And it's not because it wasn't out there, it's because it was not taught to me. You understand what I'm saying? So what happened was, I went on and I graduated high school, and I went to work for this company. And the company, for the sake of not getting sued and things like that, although it's a true story, I went to work for this company, and I was great at my job. And I remember this white lady coming in and beginning to work, and I trained her. On everything I knew. I was an excellent trainer, and I can remember she took my job. I remember they gave her my position. And so that was my first time actually dealing with that, and I was so hurt. I was so broken. I couldn't understand how that could be done. And I remember questioning, saying, why would you do that? Like, how can I train someone and you give her my job? And they didn't really have a good explanation for me. So what I did was, I began to outsource within the company and put in other resumes, and try to find another job within the company. At that time, when I look back, I could remember how all of this began for me. It was so hurtful, and I was shocked. And so I ended up getting hired because of my qualifications as an executive secretary up on the 7th floor. So I got this job, and I was an executive secretary with 4 other white secretaries. I actually was, I think I was pretty much like up there because I had a large desk. I reported to all of the CEOs. I worked for all of them. And I could remember that there would be meetings that would go on sometimes. Either I would go to lunch, you know, some secretaries were like, well, we have our lunch schedule set here, so you go to lunch at this time. Me being probably 22, I didn't know any better about what was going on, that I really held the power because I was executive secretary, and the CEO's number was really fond of me. That's how I got the job, as well with my work ethic. So I can remember when I get back from lunch, they would say, you missed a meeting. And I was like, what? And they was like, there was a meeting. And I was like, well, nobody told me. So after that happened 2 or 3 times, or I wouldn't be getting my messages while I was gone to lunch, or, you know, different things would happen. I didn't realize it then, looking back, that I was being sabotaged because I was black, and I actually was over them. So what happened was I ended up resigning from that job. I just walked in one day and I quit because it made my life a living hell. I mean, I worked my behind off, and I had a lot of work, and they weren't catching the phone calls like talking about for me. They weren't, you know, doing what needed to be done to help me to be successful at my job. And this went on for about 6 or 7 months. And so I can remember laying in the bed in the mornings before going to work and crying. I can remember getting off of work, just being miserable. I could remembering it being like a bright day, and it just was just dark outside to me. Like I could not see the light because I was so traumatized by the way I was being treated on a daily basis because of the color of my skin. That was the second incident in the same company. So at that point, not only was I shell shocked to learn that the world was a cruel place, that it was a discriminatory place, but that the color of my skin would be something that would be a thorn, not a thorn, because I love the color of my skin. It would be an obstacle that people would put in my way for the rest of my life. So at that point, I ended up going through depression. Because at that point in my life, my then husband was over at war. He was in the Gulf War, and he was in war at that very particular time. So I already was carrying the burden of him being at war, worrying and hoping that and praying that he would make it home safe. So all of that sent me into depression. And depression, if you know anything about depression, is a heavy, heavy, heavy load to take. It's not something that you could just shake off. It's not something that just change. So I ended up one day when I was at my wit's end before quitting that job, I called the Red Cross and I said, I have an emergency. I said, I cannot make it anymore. I cannot do this. I need my husband. I need my husband, and I need him now. So the people that answered the emergency line for the wives and the spouses and everything, they was like, well, what's going on? And I said, I can't do this. I said, I'm losing it. I said, I've been raped. And that's the first time that the rape came out. So when you're going through things in your life, other things can trigger it, and it could come out, and you don't understand why at the moment. You don't understand what's going on. But apparently all of that combined sent me into PTSD. I was already traumatized from the rape that I had went through as a 16-year-old that I had never dealt with, and then the discriminatory behavior towards me impacted the self-reflection I had on myself and the worth of life, and it just did a down spiral. So because of all of that, the Red Cross people said, well, if you agree to get some counseling and talk to someone, we'll definitely reach out and let the captain know above the ship that you do need to talk to your husband. They said, you really do need to talk to your husband. So I said, okay. So I agreed to get some counseling, to talk to someone to help me to deal with the things that I'm going through and was going through in my life at that time. So maybe within an hour and a half, 2 hours, no, I'm going to say maybe 3 hours, because I laid down and I just cried. The phone rung, and it was my then husband, and he was saying to me, he said, Cheryl, what's going on, and mind you, he's in the middle of a war. This is how traumatic things can be in people's lives, and you don't know what they're going through and what it can push you through. And I literally wanted to give up at that time in my life. I literally was going to give up. I literally felt like I could not make it because of people's unfair actions towards me and behavior towards me because of the color of my skin. So what happened was I talked to him, and he encouraged me in the middle of a war. He encouraged me, and he told me, he said, I'm coming home, I'll make it home, hold on. So I said, okay. So at that point, I felt the second wind. Even though I knew God, even though I knew how to pray, I needed that at that moment. And I could remember now when I look back, how I would send him letters to encourage him, and I would pray for him, and I would cry for him, and I would fast for him. But I didn't have it inside of it to do it for myself. I was tired, and so I reached out to him, and it didn't even dawn on me that he was in his own war too. But that's what you call friendship. That's what you call love. And so that's what happened at that point. It was love that saved me, and the kindness of other people that helped me to get through that discriminatory time in my life. So that's how I began to be an activist, and that's how I got the passion for me came in just loving people all around. Even though this is my calling and God has given me a heart for that type of thing, that is what happened, and why discrimination bothers me to the core. One is because nobody is better than the other person or anybody else. Two, you should never be held back or treated less than because of the color of your skin. And three, because God is not racist, which is the most important thing. God is not racist, and God does not look at the color of my skin and deem me lesser than anybody else. So what happened was that moment I realized that not only did love play a very important factor in life and how you treat people, but that was going to be the thing that would help a lot of people survive the traumas in their life. You understand what I'm saying? So I began, unintentionally, those things were bedded in me, but those things were poured out because of it, because I was not aware of it, and it shocked me, because it traumatized me. I then became an activist and moving forward into being able to assist in the racial injustices in this world. And needless to say, I went on to job after job, and I found out to be an excellent, brilliant, intelligent black woman was a threat to so many other people. And so I would go on jobs, and anytime I was mistreated because of the color of my skin, I would speak up. And I can remember my family saying, why won't you stay on anybody's job? Why can't you keep a job? But what it was is I could look back now and see changes that have happened because of me. Oh, and I just give God praise for that. I could look back and see that this job would never do it again, because I sued this particular job because of the racial disparity. I was on a job, and I was up to get a manager position. The manager over me, who was white, had her girlfriend to come in and apply for the job, but the guys preferred me, and because of that, they made up a story and said that I threatened this lady's life. I was arrested on the job, guys. I was arrested, taken out by policemen like a common criminal, and I had no idea why. So what I did was, after I was escorted off the property, I called back to the job, to Human Resources, and I said, what did I do? Now, when I tell you, I can't make this stuff up. And I said, what did I do? And they said, we got a threat that you threatened somebody's life, and they told me the story, and I was like, what? I mean, I was blown away that the manager didn't even come to me. No one came to me, nobody, because it was a devious plan to get me out of the way so that this particular woman could get the job. And so that is why nobody said anything to me. I was simply arrested. And that was an ordeal that I would never forget in my life. So what I did was I fought back. I fought back against the lies. I couldn't get an attorney to represent me. They was like, we don't want to touch this because of the company, the size of the company. We don't want anything to do with it. And a lot of it too was because it was a racial case. And so what happened, guys, was I represented myself. I went to college and in my undergrad, I took some law classes as some of my electives because I was so interested in law, but I was more interested in journalism and writing and everything else, and I wanted to get something that I felt like was going to give me some money at that moment because I was sending myself to school. I paid for my own college education 100% up to this doctoral degree has been done and through my efforts. So I needed to get something to be able to get money at that time, and I knew I couldn't do like a 7-year law degree and things like that and be able to take care of myself and make it. So what happened was I fought back. I actually ended up representing myself, and I won. And I won, you know, and I know it was with the grace of God. So I won, and that was a big step in racial tension, discrimination. And that company, I think, learned a very valuable lesson that no matter how big you are, it does not make you God. It does not make you, does not excuse you to be able to do anything that you want to do to people because of the color of their skin. So that was, you know, those are just a couple of stories of how I got to be where I am when it comes to, you know, marching and being a part of the racial injustices and trying to make a difference in life. I actually belong to an NAACP. When I was in Virginia, I never went to one meeting. It was, to me, disorganized. I had no idea what was going on because you know that behind the scenes, there are a lot of people that do a lot of things, but they are not in the forefront, and that would be me. So I continued in the fight. I walked in Richmond, Virginia's Black Lives Matter protest. I spoke at some of the events. I was one of the first ones out there the night where the helicopters and the tanks was in the streets. You know, I was a part of that because I believe that that some action makes a difference. Just speaking out makes a difference, right? Just letting your voice be heard makes a difference. Just being a part of the solution makes a difference, because when you decide to sit back and do nothing, then you have taken a side. Okay, so I'm gonna switch gears really quick. That was the first question, and I'm going to give you this when I'm talking about black hate. Now, the reason why I'm bringing up black hate, which is going to be the title, Black Hate, because of the simple fact is that one of the things that needs to be addressed as well is the black hate that we have towards one another as black people. What happens is that we have been taught to dislike our skin for so long that it took years and years for us to embrace the color of our skin. It took years for us to embrace the texture of our hair. It took years for us to love the thickness of our body. And it really didn't happen overnight. What happened was it became acceptable, and it became a thing when other ethnicities wanted to begin to have thicker hips. You know, they wanted the thick hips. They wanted the lush behinds. They wanted the thick lips. They wanted the slanting eyes. They wanted the melanin in our skin, to be honest. And that's when I think the curve came, where black women began to say, well, listen, we are beautiful in every aspect. The problem being that even though that has been a curve and we have learned to embrace the color of our skin and the complexities of our body and the beauty and all that it brings with it, we have not learned to love one another. Now, when we look at the fact that we're dealing with all this demise, division, and of course demise of Black lives and racial tension and systematic racism and just the hate and division that has happened in this nation, especially with Trump being president, and then the real white supremacists came out, the real hate exposed themselves, even Black people exposing themselves. You know, I don't know if anybody remember, I don't know what show this young lady was on, but she was on there, she was black as me, and she was saying, I'm not black. She was like, look at my hair, I don't talk like Black people, I don't deal with Black people. So point proven, and a good example of the Black hate we have for one another. Now, the reason I'm bringing that to you is because although we have learned to embrace the change, the growth of what it means to be Black and look Black, we have not fully accepted one another. I've learned that one of the things is body shaming when it comes to women in general. You know, where a man could be 800 pounds and could be out of shape and can get a woman and it's okay because so many women be like, well, I got a man. Well, that to each his own. But then you can see an 800-pound woman that's out of shape, that's feeling some kind of way about her body, and she's body shamed. You know, she's body shamed because of her curves and because of the thickness of her, because of her size. And I think it's time that we address these issues, not only with body shaming, but learn to embrace ourselves as women fully, to love ourselves. Because what happens is that when we, you know, when we have to deal with the discrimination from other ethnicities, I'm finding that we'll still have to deal with the racial discriminatory actions from Black on Black as well. When we talk about Black Lives Matter, then why does it not matter when I can go to a job? Guys, everything I'm telling you are true stories. When I can go to a job and I basically got the job in my hand, and I'm just supposed to meet with the hiring manager. And I meet with the hiring manager, and it's another Black woman, and immediately I feel the tension, not because I've brought it, not because my attitude was not in place, but immediately because I've gone through this before. I walk in and I know I got to be extra cheerful. I know I got to be extra kind. I know I got to be extra all of this, because if this Black woman is intimidated by me by any means, then I'm not going to get the job. It's happened before. So I go in, guys, and I'm, hi, how are you, Dr. Michelle, how you doing? And you know, I'm just landing on thick, and I barely get a smile back. You know, I get kind of up and down look, and I can clearly see and know that this is not how you would greet anybody else. If it had been a white woman, if it had been a Spanish, if it had been a Mexican, if it had been, you know, a pure, a Europe, you know, a Russian, a German, whatever, I know that my response wouldn't have been the same. So what we are known for is the crab mentality, because we are so used to thinking that everybody else in life deserves what they have. But as Black people, we don't want to see other Black people get and have, because we're afraid that it's going to take from us. We feel like, well, as hard as it is for us to get what we got, we feel like it's a limited amount of things out there when it comes to Black people. Like, we're only allowed 10% of the goods of a 100% of a population. So if you get any part of that 10%, then you're going to take from me. And that is completely false. There is so much money in this world to be made. There is so much money to be made. And although we go through as a Black community, we go through as a Black culture, we suffer. If we learn to love on one another, if we learn to push one another up, if we learn to have one another back, then we would get out of the mental hang-up and hiccups of thinking that if you got, then I can't get. There's enough for all of us. God owns everything in heaven and earth and the entire universe world. And if you want something, then your thing is to focus and ask God for what you want. But anytime you hinder another black person from heaven, then all you've done is planted a seed. A seed, that means a seed of karma that's going to keep you from prevailing and getting what you need to get. And that is one of the big things that I want to point out when it comes to black hate. If we are supposed to exhale as a community, breathe, if we're to get ahead and excel, go up, if we're to be anything like God has called us to be, then we have to recognize that the seeds that we plant in the black community are the seeds that we reap. Now, am I talking about the racial discrimination? Not at all. But I'm talking about what we cause amongst ourselves because of how we treat one another. So you got to look at it as a community, as a whole, a culture as a whole. If you're busy digging seeds for somebody else that's going to hinder somebody else, then how is it that the community can come up as a whole? It's time out for us to be thinking that what you do does not affect me. It does. It does. See, when you go out there and you take an innocent life for whatever rhyme or reason that you put in your mind that makes sense, then what happens is you cause somebody else to take another life. You give somebody else free will to put us in that courtroom where you know already that there's a good chance that justice won't be on our side. You know that we are guilty until we're proven innocent, instead of innocent until we're proven guilty. So then at that point, you give permission to put your brother or your sister in the hands of basically it's Russian roulette. You never know how it's going to come out, but 90% of the time we see that it has not been in our favor. So at that point, what you do does concern me, because you have no respect for the color of your own skin. You think that gives you permission to take a life. You think that gives you permission to hold people back. You think that gives you permission to hate on your sister because her skin is lighter than your skin and yet she's a black woman. Or you think it gives you permission to think that perhaps she's not worthy because her skin is darker than your skin. You understand what I'm saying? And this is the thing I need you to understand. God is not racist. God is not a racist God. So no matter how you try to justify that, as black people, we have gone through a lot. I'm the first to say we have gone through a lot. The stories that I could tell you that I've gone through as a black woman, an intelligent black woman. And I have to keep saying that because my intelligence threatens so many people. My intelligence threatened white people when they realized how smart and quick and easy I would catch on things. My intelligence threatened other white women when they realized that I would be over them. My intelligence threatened white people, period, that does not understand the beauty and the intelligence of all of us being God's creatures. See, a lot of times racial tension and discrimination comes about because of ignorance. Because white people fear what they do not know, because they see us as an aggressive race of people. They see our men as barbaric, and they see our men as barbaric because of the fact of how we shoot one another down in the streets. They see our race as barbaric because of the fact that nobody seems to care about the consequences of what you do to one another. So when I talk about black hate, I talk about the fact that you got to understand that in order for us to excel as a black race, then we have to understand that we have to be held accountable for our actions. We have to be held accountable for the things that we do within our culture. We have to begin to love ourselves. The same way we run around and say Black Lives Matter, we have to make sure that it's understood to our children and our children's children and to ourselves that we really believe ourselves that Black Lives Matter. See, and so that is how I got to the place to become who I am and become the activist that I am, because of the simple fact that, to me, it was a matter of common sense. It was a matter of common sense. It bewilds me to try to figure out how can you say Black Lives Matter? And as far as we have come as a culture, we still take one another down in the street. We kill our children. We do blind drive-bys. We do things that does not really represent what we're saying. So my thing for you today is to, if you take nothing else from this video, is that you have to be self-aware and accountable for the people in your circle, for the people in your group. It's one person at a time. And when you begin to be accountable and you begin to know who God is and you begin to know what God desires for you, that would be a first step. See, the first step is that you can't see the love inside yourself and love yourself if you don't know how much God loves you. You understand what I'm saying? So because you have to have a relationship with something other than the streets, something other than the culture, something other than what's going on in the world, you have to be concerned with you first in order to love somebody else, in order to know how to properly give love. And that is the problem. We don't know what love looks like. We don't know how to properly love. We don't know how to excel. We don't know how to do those things because we have lost sight of what and who God is. Because when you realize how much God loves you, then you have a change of heart about everything. Because when you love God, then you want everybody to flourish. When you love God, you want everybody to have. When you love God, you want everybody to be able to have the best of everything and be their best selves. You want the best version of themselves because then you know what God wants. Because God is love. So we backstep and we learn who God is because that makes a difference. And when you understand that God is sovereign over everybody, black hate are diminished. White on white, white hate towards black people will diminish. All of those things will begin to get better because then we have a focal point. The focal point is not getting even. The focal point is not trying to determine where you belong in the totem pole in life. The focal point is not trying to figure out how much can you get and I don't have. The focal point is to love. And the focal point, in order for that to happen, has to be God. Because then it's a reflection of Him that makes you understand, if you got, I got. That is why we're in this together. If you have it, I have it. If I don't have it, I know that I can come to you. If I know I need to help you do something, then by all means, that's what I'm going to do. So we at that point understand that it's about seeing you and rejoicing with you when you do well. And when you're not doing well, it's about doing the best I can to help you. So when we get to the point that we can stop hating on one another, then we can get to the point where we can understand how this world is supposed to be. See, a lot of people don't understand that the hell we live is because of our own actions. The hell we go through a lot of times is because of our own decisions. If Black Lives Matter, then we got to start treating one another like Black Lives Matter. You cannot continue to march and protest about the police not respecting Black lives, but the police is out there because you just killed another brother or sister. The police is out there because you're somewhere doing something that you're not supposed to be doing. Now, am I making an excuse? No, of all people, you know I'm not making an excuse. Even those that don't know me. What I'm saying is that we have to start being accountable of our own. You cannot think that we can keep moving the way we move and think then the repercussions and the consequences of what we do won't be a reflection back on the black race. So that means that these young boys walking around out here with their pants down and guns showing and have attitude, that means that when another older man says something to you, it does not give you the right to shoot him. You get what I'm saying? Our kids have no tolerance. They're immature and they have no tolerance for life, respect for life, or they have no tolerance whatsoever. It is a dangerous person. A person that cannot control their temper is a dangerous person. And normally it is a immature person because you have to understand that self-control is a part of maturity. Self-control means that you have to understand that it means that you have to suck up some things and not say everything that you want to say. Self-control means that you have to deal with some things and listen sometimes and not think that you got all the sense. Self-control means that you have to understand that it's better to walk away and live another day than to shoot and take a life and then spend the rest of your life in prison, or have your life taken and you wake up to the other life because you didn't give up the right to have your life. Self-control means that you have to understand that it means sometimes you have to separate yourself from those who don't have the same agenda, and that is to live and not die. So although we have come from slavery, although we have gone through a lot in our lifetimes, although we have come from the bottom of the barrel, our actions and our consequences and our decisions makes us seem like that we're comfortable being at the bottom of the barrel. Makes it seem like that we're comfortable because we would help everybody else before we help our own. So we have to be accountable for one another. And I don't know if it'll happen in my lifetime, and I'm promising and hoping, I'm hoping that it does, because it's so much going on now that I didn't think would happen in my lifetime. Everything that's happening now, I thought I would be dead and gone, but it's happening now, which means that I have a purpose now. That because it happened now, that I have a purpose now, and so I'm giving it to you just like this. So today's topic was black hate. In the beginning, I did answer those questions about how I became to be the activist that I am, the black activist that I am, and how I ended up on this journey when it comes to being so passionate about the discrimination that we face as black people. So again, these were just some nuggets. I squeeze it in as quick as I can, because I need a day if I'm to break down the things that I talk to you guys and really talk to you guys. But I want to continue to plant a seed and to at least give you this, give you enough that it can make you think, and as always, entice you to do better. As a community, as a race, as a person, because God is not racist, you know, and when you begin to believe that you deserve the life that God has for you, then you'll begin to believe and rejoice when other people embrace the life that God has for them. It is that simple. So listen, I'm gonna go. This is Dr. Michelle. I've had several people stop and just listen, and some people waving and everything. It's kind of funny because you can always tell our brothers and sisters, Caucasian brothers and sisters that are for equality and justice, because they will wave and be like, you know, after they heard you say something, they will share the love. You know, everybody is not against us, and we have to, as hard as it is to accept that, like I said, we have to begin to embrace us first so that we can live this life and have what God has for us. Black hate does not work either. As we'll continue to shout Black Lives Matter, make sure that nobody can come back and say, are you sure? Because right now, it doesn't look like Black Lives Matter. It doesn't look like it when I see on the news that a 11-year-old has been shot in a drive-through. It doesn't look like it when I see babies shot in the park because the park is full and black people are being arrested for doing drive-by shootings. It doesn't look like it when black guys can stand in the street and just shoot each other about nothing. It doesn't look like when I see black guys beating one another up in the streets. I remember there was a time when we just used to fight. We used to just square up and fight and get it over with and go on about our business. And today, nobody even communicates. Nobody want to square up. Nobody want to have a serious conversation, dialogue, or just converse about what the problem is. We rather take one another's lives, and that has to change. If Black Lives matters to you, and you're a part of this revolution for better, for our children, for the rest of the remainder of our lives, then you got to start to represent Black Lives Matter, and you got to let it be a reflection of what you say in your heart, not just what you want to chant and be seen, but it has to really matter to you. Okay, so this is Dr. Michelle. You guys enjoy the rest of your day. Don't forget to subscribe and like And don't forget to stay close. I'm going to try to do these as often as possible to address some of the things that's going on and keep you updated. And hopefully I begin to see even a bigger change. I thank God for the change that I've already seen by the strength and the acts of my hand. I just believe. I believe that's the difference. I still have hope in a world where it looks hopeless. Okay, guys, be good.